You're watching TVP World. I'm Alex Cadier, right here in our Brussels studio. The talk of the town, amongst others, has been trade, the trade deal with the US, what to do with China. The European Union squeezed between those two giants. What is the EU doing? We've seen that deal signed off by the Trade Committee of the European Parliament with the US in the last few days. Who better then to talk to you about that than Karin Karlsbro, the Vice Chair of the Trade Committee of the European Parliament, also a member of the European Parliament, of course. Thank you so much for joining us on TVP World.
Thank you.
I want to start with that Turnberry deal, that deal with the US. Super simple question, is it a good deal?
It's not a good deal, but it's the deal we have. And what the Parliament have achieved together with the other EU institutions now is to make it Trump-proof. I hope that we will have full support from the European Parliament in the final vote, which will take place on the 16th of June. So we're not really in the safe harbor yet, but a Trump-proof implementation law is what we have achieved.
The European Parliament was accused by the Trump administration of delaying, of dithering, of hesitating. I was in Washington, D.C., and I see a tweet, a Truth Social post from President Trump, 25% tariffs on the European Union because of these delays. Were you delaying and dithering?
Not at all. There have been many tweets, I would say. But let's go back in time. First of all, we have to understand that we have a new neighbor. Imagine if you had a new neighbor and you can't rely on him or her. He or she is totally unpredictable, but what to do? You are living close together, so you have to find a sustainable way, a sustainable approach. So this is what we have done. And first of all, we did not give in to President Trump's blackmail. Second, we have achieved to contribute to predictability around this agreement. And that is super important for millions of citizens, for business, for workers and for consumers. So we need the trade relations, a good, stable trade relations with the United States, but it must be built on mutual respect.
Does Donald Trump respect the European Union?
I think it's not the way. We haven't forgotten Greenland. Just weeks after the meeting in Turnberry, we followed the social media where new tariffs was presented. That was a clear breach to the agreement. So we are still in a situation where we have a very unpredictable president in the White House, but we have to take responsibility and handle that situation, and that's what we have done. So since Turnberry, we have not been lazy. We have been working harder than ever, I would say, to find a solution. But in the same time, we have seen how President Trump have acted. And just say Greenland, and I think everyone understands.
To stay with your neighbour metaphor, we have this increasingly volatile neighbour, a new neighbour that you're not sure if you can rely on. Has the committee, and perhaps soon the Parliament, made the decision that actually, let's make a bad deal, as you described it, not a good deal, with the volatile neighbour, because if we don't, he might start throwing rocks at our house. And so actually, let's take a bad deal to try and appease the situation. Maybe we can build on it, maybe we can move forward. It's kind of the lesser of two evils to strike this deal? Well,
I think it's a very clear illustration what it can be to have an unpredictable neighbor. But I think we have to be prepared for everything. But the only thing we can do in this moment is to take responsibility and do the best out of it, because this is what the European citizens expect from us. And European Union is and wants to be a reliable trading partners. We need to do the best to continue the deep and important trade relations with the US. I'm Swedish. This is something super important for our economy, for the daily life for millions of people. So we cannot just avoid US, which is our most important trading partner, but we have to be prepared. And as I said, it must be built on mutual respect. That's why we have Trump-proof this agreement. And let me just explain what that means. For example, if President Trump addresses with new tariffs, it's over. We will not accept new tariffs or threats. There is a suspension clause around the agreement which will make that possible. And the message from the EU is super clear. We want trade relations. We want deeper, stable trade relations, but it must be predictable and built on mutual respect. It must have legal base and law and order. It's simple like that.
You just said new tariffs, it's over, new threats. You said tariffs or threats. Threats, I imagine, is a bit blurry, because if it's just a tweet saying, I don't like Ursula von der Leyen, therefore 75% tariffs on the European Union, does that mean the Parliament moves to tear this up, or is that more of a, let's see if he implements it, he doesn't really mean it? It's quite blurry. Where do you draw the line on threats?
I think you have to follow his social media accounts every day, and the answer is that we have a quite big toolbox to react. This suspension clause in this agreement, it's only one tool in the toolbox. We have also the trade bazooka, which is a stronger trade weapon, which can be used if one state, one country, like the US or someone else, threatens one EU member. Then it's the same. It's like the NATO Article 5. A threat to one country is seen as a threat to the whole Union. So this suspension clause is not the only tool we have. So maybe we'll not use the tools every time in the Sunday morning when President Trump writes something not so nice. But it's serious and it can be used, and we are prepared because we cannot have a situation where we have built our relations on threats and blackmail. That's now not how it should be. I mean, the EU, Europe in general, and the United States have been the closest partners for decades. So it's very sad that we found ourselves in this situation, and we want to and we have to do our best to avoid and escalate conflicts, but at the same time be super clear what we can accept.
Another thing President Trump not thrilled with the EU about is its posture on China. He wants to see tougher measures, tougher restrictions. He wants to see the European Union really cracking down on unfair trade with China. That has started in some elements. In your role on the Trade Committee, can we talk about what the strategy is for China? Because, you know, some analysts will tell you actually everything else is a distraction. China is the biggest existential challenge for the European Union. What are we doing to protect European businesses, European consumers, European markets from pressure from China?
Well, first of all, I have to say we must look at the full picture. And we have to add Russia when we talk about threats to the European Union, and also the new geopolitical situation and the new relations between the US, China and Russia, and act from that. And it's obvious that we have to address China as aggressive force, and we have to step up when it comes to economic security in general, because we are also very much aware of the Chinese ambitions. Let me give you two examples. I was also the Parliament's rapporteur on the steel trade measure, which addressed the which addresses the global overcapacity of steel. It means that countries like China, for example, put huge subsidies on the steel sector, which make it very, very problematic for the European Union, which has not the same, we have not the same approach in our economy at all. And in the same time, we are also we're having a price on carbon emission, which makes it it's very, very unbalanced. That's why we have this. We just voted some weeks ago about this trade measure to address, for example, these Chinese imports to the European Union. So that's one example. But I want also, in this context, be very clear that this is not the only solution, that we build a wall, economic wall around the European Union, because protectionism will harm the European Union, and in the end, and to be an open trading partner is of our interest. So also there we have to find a balance, and for many, you cannot say that you should stop the trade with China or something like that, because it is a very, very important trading partner, but we have to be careful. But another very, very concrete example is, I don't know if you have tried to buy something from Shein or Temu, this platform for consumer, where you can buy super cheap clothes and toys and stuff like that. The problem with them is that they don't respect basic regulations for health, security, etc., etc. And I think it's a very practical example that at the same time we have quite high expectations from the businesses and shops in the European Union to respect the laws, and these companies can just sell into the Union without respecting this. So I would like to see high, let's say 100% higher tariffs on these companies to have a more fair and balanced situation. So you have to approach China in different way, on a more global way, but also address this different kind of business models which are quite aggressive on our markets.
We're running out of time here, but you're a liberal politician. You would have been pro-open markets for your entire political career. Are they over? Is it done now? We're in volatile US, unfair China, open markets aren't sustainable for the European Union anymore?
No, as I said, two things. I think it's more important than ever than that Europe stay united, that we in the European Union, but also, of course, with our partners, Norway, UK, Ukraine, Canada, that we work closer together, and trade is one part of that. We should really try to integrate our partners as much as possible in the internal market. But another thing is that we can't be naive, because first of all, it's really dangerous to be dependent on one country for fossil fuels, critical raw materials, and other strategic products. So we have to be very, very careful. And another thing, the competition must be fair in the end, because if you really believe that market economy is the business model that works and provides us a better society and economic growth, we also have to care for the conditions for the market. And when it comes to China, it's very obvious that the huge state subsidies, it's not about market economy, it's something else, and that's something we have to address.
Just a final question, very quickly. You're mentioning the fact that trade is also part of geopolitics, we have to adapt. One example of that perhaps for the EU is trade exemptions for Ukraine, right? Where barriers were put up for others, Ukraine had exemptions. You were very much involved in that. Where do those stand? Is there pressure now against these exemptions? Are there voices within the EU pushing for more restrictions on trade with Ukraine. We've seen that with the farming corridors, etc. Is that getting worse?
I would say, and I'm very worried about this, because since the full-scale invasion, Ukraine has had more or less free trade. It has been free trade between the Ukraine and the European Union. And that has served, this free trade has served as an economic lifeline for Ukraine, because business as usual in a wartime where the Ukrainian economy, as well as the whole country, but the economy, the industry is under heavy Russian attack. It's base for keep the country up and running, for the resilience. So I'm very worried that we put more restrictions for the trade with Ukraine, because it will harm the Ukrainian economy in a very dangerous moment. We should do the opposite. It should be all trade with Russia should be completely forbidden.
Well, I'm sure if things change on that front, we'll have you back here on TVP World. Thank you so much for your time, Karin Karlsbro. It was a real pleasure to speak to you.
It was a pleasure, thank you.
And thank you all for watching at home. I've been Alex Cadier here in Brussels for TVP World. Stay tuned for more news and analysis just after this.